David Walliams, the rise, the laughter, and the backlash. David Walliams, a man who made Britain laugh and then made it squirm. For years, he was the face of Saturday night TV and bedtime stories. The cheeky grin, the quick wit, the big heart. From Little Britain to Britain's Got Talent, from sketch shows to best-selling children's books, he was everywhere. But behind the charm sits another story. One full of contradictions, controversies, and uncomfortable questions. How far can comedy go? And when does the laugh become something more dark? This isn't just a story of one comedian, it's a story of how Britain's sense of humour changed and how one man found himself caught in the middle. So let's roll it back and see where it all began. The rise from Surrey to stardom. David Edward Walliams, before he dropped the Edward, grew up in suburban Surrey. Quiet kid, bright spark, massive imagination. He studied drama, joined the National Youth Theatre, and that's where he met a like-minded mischief maker called Matt Lucas. The pair started creating characters, sketches, and nonsense that made people howl. By 2003, the BBC gave them their own show, Little Britain. It would change both of their lives and British comedy forever. Little Britain, when the laughter turned sour. Now let's get this straight. When Little Britain first hit the screens, it was a smash, absolute gold. And I'll be honest, I loved it. We all did. It was outrageous, fearless, and funny as hell. Those characters, Vicky Pollard, Daffy Thomas, Carol Beer, they became part of the national language. Down a pub, work in the schoolyard, everyone was quoting it. It was cheeky, a bit naughty, and that's what made it brilliant. Back then, we could laugh at ourselves. Everybody could take a joke. No one took it too seriously. It wasn't cruel, it was comedy. Kind that pushed the line just enough to make you gasp and laugh in the same breath. But over time, the world changed, everybody went woke, and so did people's patience for that kind of humour. When you watch Little Britain now, you can see why some of it rubs folk up the wrong way. There's the blackface, the dodgy accents, jokes about disability and sexuality, stuff that wouldn't get past a script meeting today. So a lot of people now, that looks shocking. But here's the thing, back then, it wasn't meant to offend anyone. It was just sending up everyone. White, black, straight, gay, rich, poor, nobody was safe. And that's why it worked. Nowadays though, telly's gone so woke, you can barely make a joke about the weather without someone kicking off online.
Several British comedy shows have been removed from streaming platforms for containing scenes with performers in blackface.
Wow. Comedy's lost its edge. It used to be about taking the mickey out of everyone, including themselves. Now it's all about, who you might upset. Even Walliams and Lucas later said they'd do things differently if they could. Fair play, time moves on. But for me, millions of us who watched it live, Little Britain was harmless, hilarious, and very, very British. In 2020, the BBC and Netflix quietly pulled it from their platform.
One of the BBC's most successful television comedies, Little Britain, starring David Walliams and Matt Lucas, has been removed from all streaming platforms because of concerns about the way that characters from different ethnic backgrounds are portrayed.
The show once celebrated as genius, vanished overnight. Maybe that says more about us than it does about them. The live shows, when comedy crossed the line. After the TV success came Little Britain Live, the big budget tour. And that's where things started to get uncomfortable. Walliams brought on a new character, Des Kay, a washed-up kids TV host with a very dark sense of humour. One sketch, called Hide the Sausage, had him pulling lads out the crowd, some barely 16, and groping them on stage while the audience laughed. At the time, people thought it was all part of the act, a bit of shock value. But looking back on it now, it's hard to see it as anything but disturbing. One viewer wrote to Walliams saying the sketch made molestation seem like a joke. Walliams shrugged it off. There are no subjects you can't joke about.
To me, there are no subjects that you can't make jokes out of, because if you make that line, then you have to get rid of all comedy. You might as well not have it.
Maybe you believe that, but there's a difference between daring comedy and cruelty dressed as humour. Even Matt Lucas later admitted that some nights got ugly. Angry parents backstage, punches thrown, the shock factor had gone too far. And that's the thing with fame. Once you start chasing bigger laughs, the boundaries blur. And David Walliams seemed addicted to pushing them. The public facade, the judge, and the gentleman. But in true showbiz fashion, he reinvented himself again. In 2012, he joined Britain's Got Talent, sitting alongside Simon Cowell. Overnight, he was back on top, the nation's cheeky uncle. He was witty, charming, camp, and everybody loved it. 3 national television awards for Best Judge. He was funny, harmless, family friendly. And at the same time, he'd become one of the country's biggest children's authors. Books like Gangster Granny, Billionaire Boy, Rat Burger. They flew off the shelves. He sold more than 50 million copies. But even in that world, the cracks started to show. The books, family fun, or something else. In one story, a character called Brian Wong, who was never Wong, upset readers for using lazy Chinese stereotypes. The publisher pulled it from future editions, and then there were little throwaway lines like a dad staring at the girl on page 3 in a kid's book. Nothing criminal, just tone deaf. But it made people wonder if he truly understood the audience he was writing for. Still, the book sold, because when you build a brand that strong, it takes a lot to bring it down. Until 2022, when the laughter stopped. Britain's Got Talent, the leak that ended it all. During breaks in filming Britain's Got Talent, microphones caught Walliams saying things that shocked everyone. He called an elderly contestant a fucking cunt 3 times. He made disgusting, sexually explicit remarks about a young woman who just performed. It wasn't banter, it was plain vile. And this time, no one could spin it as banter or comedy. The story hit the papers, the public turned. ITV didn't renew his contract. Walliams apologised, saying they were private conversations, never to be shared. But the damage was done. He later sued the producers, saying it caused him psychiatric harm. They settled out of court quietly. And just like that, 10 years on, primetime television was gone. The aftermath, still standing. You might have thought that that would have finished him. But David Walliams has a knack for survival. He's still writing, still appearing on shows abroad, still finding ways to stay in the spotlight. In Britain, fame doesn't always fade. It just changes form. People forget, time moves on, and controversy becomes part of the story. The big question, who's really to blame? So what does this all tell us? Is Walliams the problem? Or is he just a product of his time? A comedian crushed by a new world that's forgotten how to laugh at itself? The truth's somewhere in the middle. Comedy used to be about pushing the limits. Now those limits have shrunk. Maybe that's progress, or maybe it's fear. Walliams built his career on being outrageous, and for years we cheered him on. Only when the world changed did we start calling it out. Maybe the uncomfortable truth is that we all played a part. We all laughed, we all clapped, we all cheered, we all bought the tickets. And now we're pretending we didn't. The legacy. Say what you like about David Walliams, but he has left his mark. He made Britain laugh, argue and think. He proved how thin the line is between funny and offensive. And his story isn't over, because whether you love him or loathe him, he represents something bigger. The moment Britain's sense of humour grew up, or maybe just got scared. Maybe we've all become too sensitive, too woke. Maybe we've simply evolved. Either way, the days of Little Britain are long gone, and so is the freedom that came with them. David Walliams, the Joker, the judge, the author, the controversy. He's been adored, condemned, cancelled and applauded, sometimes all in the same week. His story's messy, awkward, human and very, very British, because fame never really disappears. It just hides in the space between laughter and regret. And in the end, whether you think he went too far or the world's gone too soft, only you can be the judge. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode, the roller coaster ride of David Walliams in his career. If you made it this far, make sure you comment "Betty" down below, and make sure you like, make sure you subscribe, and we will see you on the other side.
There are rumours abound, Matt, that you and David are reuniting to reboot or recreate Little Britain, or for a new generation. Is that the case?
Well, what we're doing is we're working on a few different TV ideas and maybe ideas in other mediums as well, to do stuff together again, because it's been a long time.
It has.
So we're developing lots of different things.